There we go. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking some time to come talk about making climate action affordable with MassSave, particularly for houses of worship, but also that these programs I'll be talking about apply to all nonprofits. So, in addition to the house of worship that you may be affiliated with, if your house of worship supports other nonprofits or you know folks in nonprofits in your area, let them know about this program and yeah, point them to us as in the future. Um, I also want to let you know that we're going to do this again Monday evening. So again, if you find this information valuable, you can think of other folks who might find it valuable. Spread the word. I put a nice bit.ly link here that's relatively easy to remember. Macy will drop that into the chat right now, so you could grab it right out of the chat. Um, and we'll we'll share this information again on Monday. Um, Here's what we're going to do, but we're a really small group here, so feel free to, raise your hand, just jump in with a question. It won't, throw things off too terribly much. And Macy, keep an eye on if there is somebody raising a hand, jump in and let me know. Um, but I know, both Russ and David, you guys know why to go green, so I'll go light on that section. And I know, Dave, you know us at MassIPL pretty well. Russ, I think you may know us a little bit, but I'll give you a little bit about us there. I wouldn't be a good board president if I didn't do a little bit of a pitch for the organization. But then I'll try to get power through that and we'll get right into all the MassSave things going on right now. Of course, the first reason to go green that everyone thinks about is financial, saving money. And as the founder of MassIPL, Tom Powell, always said, green grows two ways, one of which you take to the bank. Um, but of course, for those of us who are people of faith, there are much deeper reasons, starting with the Genesis commission from God to, as speaking as a Christian, to till and keep the garden, which is that care for creation motivation. But to me, there's an even deeper motivation. And here I'm going to go away from scripture for just a moment and come back in a little bit. But I'm going to go to a bunch of scientists. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, in their 2014 report on impacts, adaptation, and vulnerability of climate change, made this statement, which really caught my eye. People who are socially, economically, culturally, or otherwise marginalized are especially vulnerable. They're talking about developing countries. They're talking about, countries like, Bangladesh or some of the island nations where floods, rising sea level, heat waves, droughts are not just a matter of inconvenience. They're a matter potentially of life and death. And as we here in the United States, relatively comfortable. We probably have insurance to, take care of any damage. Many of us have air-conditioned homes to retreat into in those heat waves, etc. So it's really the people who are socially, economically, culturally, or otherwise marginalized that are going to feel the biggest effects of that. Now, let me go back to scripture. This sounds a lot like the people Jesus always talked about. Now, in his day, it was the lame, the disabled, the blind, the Samaritans, the tax collectors, whoever. But all of those groups are socially, economically, culturally marginalized. And the message of Jesus is always that we're to pay attention to those people, to love them as our brothers and sisters, and to do something to help alleviate the challenges they face. So I think from a faith perspective, that for me personally is really a powerful motivation. Um, and of course, we in the United States have a disproportionate contribution to the amount of carbon in the atmosphere and therefore uh, the impacts of climate change. And so our responsibility to these marginalized people uh, is even greater. So, what do we do about it? Now, maybe many of your houses of worship have a social justice committee or even an environmental justice committee. Maybe you've sent mission trips to places that have seen damage. My church sent a couple of mission trips to Katrina or to New Orleans after Katrina, whatever that is, 10 years ago or so now. Many of us probably also make donations to various aid organizations, and all those things are good things, and all of those are things we'll be called to do more and more of in the future. Um, but I'm here to say that lowering your carbon footprint is that act of compassion, same act of compassion, is that caring for our brothers and sisters who are vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And whether it's something as simple as turning down your thermostat a few degrees this winter, or something as big as replacing your entire heating system, um, each of those acts, I think, really can come from a place of faith. Which brings me to my pitch for MassIPL, because that's where we come in. One of our mantras is putting our faith in action for climate justice. And we have these three kind of program areas: pray, act, and mobilize, to try to help support our members in incorporating these concepts into their faith life. And obviously, today is most about act. What can you do in your worship building, but also in your homes, your schools, your places of work? What can you do to lower your carbon emissions? Um, and then, as either laws or regulations come up that are going to promote a more sustainable world, we will obviously get the word out about those and hope um, to mobilize our members in support uh, of things like that that will improve uh, on the way the world's going. Since we're talking a lot about ACT today, what can you do on our website? In the ACT section, you see a link at the top of, I pulled this screenshot from the page. And if you go into that link, you'll see we have congregation success stories. So some case studies about several congregations that are, if not all the way to net zero, or getting pretty close. We also have what we call everyday environmental stewardship briefs. Those are, 1 to 4 page articles on topics like programmable thermostats or heat pumps, things like that. If uh, you either need to learn about them or you want to help educate those in your congregation about them, grab these off our website uh, uh, and do that. Um, and then there's our environmental stewardship assessment. This is MassIPL's flavor of an energy audit that's tailored specifically to house of worship buildings, which are architecturally unique. They're used in unique ways. And so, um, we've found that energy auditors who are used to office buildings or homes or stores, they just aren't attuned to the differences of houses of worship and miss some really important things. So that's why we created our own flavor here. And so that's available. I may touch on a little bit more later. Um, but you can also sign up, of course, for our newsletter. Like any good nonprofit organization, we have a newsletter, and well, actually now our new executive director has upped our game here. I think he's putting out a newsletter every couple of weeks, and each newsletter typically has these links and news about Pray, Act, and Mobilize opportunities for you. So you can go to this link up here to sign up if you're not, or if you want to drop your email address in the chat to Macy, we'll get you signed up there as well. And of course, I wouldn't be a good board president if I didn't make the pitch to support us. So either as an individual or as your house of worship, if you're not already a supporter, we greatly appreciate that support, and obviously it enables us to do all these things that we're doing. So um, now the end of the year giving season is coming up, so this might be a good time if you would be so inclined to put us on your list. All right, end of commercial. Let's get back to the main topic today, which is MassSave and what do they offer that can help make these actions to lower our climate impact affordable. Probably aware, MassSave is a state energy efficiency program that it's administered through the utilities, primarily Eversource, National Grid, and Unitil. Mostly Eversource and National Grid for those of us on the call here. Um, it's funded by charges on both your electricity and your gas bill. On the electricity bill, it's a line item under the distribution part if you want to get that geeky and dig into the nitty-gritty details there. Um, on the gas bill, it's not quite lined out that specifically. It's bundled into a thing called the delivery adjustment factor. But here's the impact of it. Because it's funded by all of us who use electricity and gas, we're all paying into the system every single month. And based on the data I have about houses of worship that we've worked with, the average house of worship uses almost 30,000 kilowatt hours of electricity annually. And at that 3 cents a kilowatt hour, that's $887 a year. So you're paying into the program. Why not get some of that back or as much as you can out of it? So what can you get back out of it? We're going to focus on three specific incentives today. First is the up to 100% of the cost of weatherization, weatherization meaning insulation and air sealing. And I'm sorry I have to always qualify and say things like up to and 30 to 40% of the cost of certain lighting upgrades. Um, some of that is MassSave language that they require me to use, which I'm sure their lawyers require them to use. Um, and I have seen a few instances in the weatherization where they have only covered about 90%, not the 100%, for some completely unknown reason, and they don't provide any explanation. So, um, anyway, little of my frustration with the MassSave program. But anyway, in any case, you can get the vast majority, if not all, of that cost of insulation and air sealing covered. Lighting, much more limited. We'll talk in more detail about that. Lighting has been a big focus of the MassSave program over about the last 10 years. And in the last 2 or 3 years, as LED lighting really has become mainstream, and it's very rare um, to use any other sort of lighting these days, that they've been ramping down those incentives. And quite frankly, this may be the last opportunity to get any incentives. So um, we'll talk about that. Then, if you happen to have a steam heating system, there's an incentive to fix what are called steam traps that we'll talk about a little more in a second. The good thing about this program is that MassSave pays the contractors directly. You don't have to hire the contractor, pay their invoice, submit for your rebate, wait for them to give you the money back. It's all between MassSave and the contractors. So that's really helpful. And in the cases where there may be a balance due, whether it's on the lighting or the insulation or anything, most of the time I've seen them offer the option to spread the payments out over either 12 or 24 months. And in those cases, often the savings from this action will be more on a monthly basis than that monthly payment. So it's a way that even if you have some money due, you can handle it without really having any impact on the budget of your faith community. And we all know all our budgets are incredibly tight. So something like that can really be helpful if a balance due of maybe 500, 1,000, $2,000 would otherwise deter you. You can take advantage of that. and get the work done. Um, there's some other programs available. There are incentives for heat pumps and heat pump hot water heaters, induction stoves, batteries and EV chargers. Not going to talk about those today. You can ping me and we can talk about those if those are relevant to you. Um, and then pre-weatherization barrier mitigation. That's a real mouthful. What the heck does that mean? That means if, like many old buildings, they have an old form of electric wiring called knob and tube, that has to be deactivated or removed prior to installing insulation because it's a fire hazard if you install insulation on top or around it. And they provide some, MassSave provides some of the money. Um, there's restrictions on based on the size of your building and the cost, but it can be about half of the cost of that. Um, and aside for that is if you do have knob and tube wiring, it is a fire hazard, and you'd really do yourselves a favor to get rid of it anyway. Um, so if you can get somebody to pay even part of the cost for you, that's a good thing. Another barrier is asbestos or vermiculite insulation. This was an old kind of insulation used, I want to say like the 40s and 50s maybe, and then once it was, uh, the dangers of asbestos became more known, it was discontinued. But a lot of it still sits in old buildings, in old attics. And before you put any new insulation in, that needs to be removed. And of course, given the hazards of it, has to be removed in a very safe manner and a very specific manner. So again, can be very costly. So anybody who can uh, help you pay for that, that is a good thing. Um, if you want to dig into this on your own, go up to masssave.com. Depending on whether your house of worship is on a residential R rate or a commercial G rate, the incentives are slightly different. Again, one of the complexities of the MassSave program that it can be very frustrating. But that's why we're here. We're here to help you navigate all that. But you can at least go there if you're interested, cruise and see what else is available and what might be relevant to you. Now, in order to try to make, as I've alluded, the program can be uh, pretty complicated. Um, and so one of the other ways that we've tried to streamline this is we have partnered with a very small handful of MassSave approved vendors. For weatherization, um, it's a company called Advanced Green Insulation, and secondly, Rogers Insulation. So we have two good partners there. For the lighting and other kind of electric um, programs, we have a company called Energy Source. And for steam traps, a company called Steam Trap Systems. But let's dig into weatherization. Um, why should you weatherize? As you can imagine, at my church, me being the uh, uh, energy geek that I am, I have studied in great detail and I've put sensors on various pieces of equipment and various circuits in our electric panel to monitor our energy use quite closely. And when I do all the analysis, what you can see here is that the heating, we have both electric baseboard heat and propane furnaces. Um, Heating is 66% of our total energy use. Makes sense, it gets cold up here in New England, in the winters. Um, and as much lighting as we use, air conditioning is pretty minor. Um, so focusing on uh, reducing the amount of energy we use for heat has a big impact, both on the amount of energy used, which then has a big impact on our bills, but similarly on our carbon emissions. Um, so really important place to start. And the way to do that there's really two things you need to do. One is get off of your fossil fuel heating system. We're not going to talk a lot about that today. That's a bigger project. MassIPL has helped a lot of houses of worship with that. And would love to uh, uh, work with you if that's something that's on the horizon for you. But then the other is tightening up your building envelope, aka weatherization, aka adding insulation and air sealing the building. And this is where this MassSave program comes in. And I don't know where they come up with these really weird photos of uh, houses of worship that I've never seen one like this in Massachusetts, but looks very cool. Um, oh, here's our partners. I thought I had them earlier, but been working with the insulation contractors now for about a year, and with energy source and steam trap systems now for about 4 months. Um, and yeah, they're just very reliable, quality, uh, diligent contractors. So uh, been been pleased with that. Um, and when you look at um, insulation in particular, here are the kind of standards that we look at. And in that first column, the sort of common, that's in the old, um, through the probably starting in the 70s, going up through the 80s and 90s. Um, those were kind of the levels of insulation that were fairly common. Base code is the current Massachusetts base code, as you can see, significantly higher. Um, and then the stretch code goes even higher than that. And quite frankly, in our old buildings, we probably can't even get to base code, much less stretch code. But this gives you a sense of, where the um, where those kind of gaps are between what's possible or what could be done or should be done versus where you might be today. Um, Adding insulation is great, really important, but also sealing areas of air infiltration. It is amazing how many tiny little cracks and holes and ways that air can leak into and out of a building, and out of the what's called the conditioned space into an unconditioned space like an attic. If it's an unused attic, it's not heated. Well, a lot of air can leak out through various um, uh, ways, things like recessed lights, or even just a regular lighting fixture. You just have a wire coming through the ceiling from the attic, little hole around that wiring, a little air can leak up through that. All these different places, and what the air sealing part of the weatherization um, uh, program is about finding as many of those as you can get to, using things like caulk or weather sealing or little cans of spray foam, and just really going after those and sealing those up. But this other statistic here comes from the EPA, and they say that if you add up all these little tiny leaks around a typical building, um, they can equal a 4 foot hole in the side of the building, which would be like, having an entire window taken out of your building or left open. And if you saw that, you would certainly do something about it. But that's how much, if you think about how much air could get out through a hole that size, that's really what you're losing, even though it's going out through, potentially dozens of these tiny, tiny little areas. So that's the weatherization pitch. In lighting, as I mentioned, um, much more restrictive program. They're really focusing right now on a limited set of type of lighting, fluorescent tube lighting. A lot of our houses of worship have exterior lights with their parking lot lighting, walkway lighting, or lighting up the steeple, or lighting up the building for um, architectural effect. That might be halogen or other sodium vapor, mercury vapor lamps, all those things that are very high energy users that can be replaced by LED these days. Um, the program is also very, very focused on controls, motion sensors, light sensors, timers, and those will be included with any new lighting installation. As I mentioned, um, the incentive currently covers about 30 to 40% of the cost. Um, so, you know, better than nothing. And again, it might be the last chance to get anything. So if you have any of these uh, fluorescent lights, particularly on the left, which were the most common form of lighting from probably the 50s through the 90s, um, uh, really a good time to upgrade to more efficient LED panels on the right. And I can tell you when I did this at my church a few years ago, it's not just the energy savings, but the quality of light I find just much, much more satisfying, much, much better. So it really creates a better ambiance in the rooms and things. Um, Finally, steam traps. I don't know, David, Russ, do either of you have steam heat in your buildings?
Yeah, we do.
You do. Okay. Um, they're a real pain to take care of, aren't they? I don't know if many people don't even know what a steam trap is or why they should care about it. But anyway, so it's this little component that sits in the piping along uh, uh, the way where the steam goes from the boiler to the various radiators. And it performs this function of as the steam condenses and releases its heat, it takes that water that is the condensate, sends it back to the boiler, sends the remaining steam on through the rest of the system. And over time, they can wear out mechanically, they can get clogged with, if there's minerals in your water, things like that. And if they're not functioning effectively, it can reduce the efficiency of the system by 20%. In other words, you're going to be spending 20% more than you need to. So in this program, uh, the MassSave will pay for an assessment to find how many steam taps you have, get a sense of what condition they're in, and then the utility, whether it's National Grid or Eversource, who's providing your gas, um, will prepare their proposal, run it by MassSave to see what percent of that MassSave will pay for, and then you'll get um, that proposal. I can tell you, Eversource right now is being a little more generous than National Grid. So I don't know if either of you are Eversource territory. Um, uh, uh, but even National Grid, it'll be a good program to see what you're up against anyway, and then see where you go from there. But again, if you can improve, save 20% on your heating bill, even if it's not paid 100%, that probably will pretty quickly pay back whatever you might have to pay. Um, so how to participate in the program? Uh, on the call with me here is my colleague Macy Morani, um, and there's her email address. Russ, I think we've got you in the on here already, don't we? We've been working with you. But again, spread the word to other folks that you know. Give them Macy's email address. All we need is name and address of the house of worship. And if you have a parsonage, if you have a school, if you have a thrift store, any building that you own and operate will be covered under this program. So give us all those addresses, give us contact information for the person who would be best for the assessors and from those partner companies to contact to get things scheduled. Um, then when they come, in order to prepare the MassSave paperwork, they will need a copy of a recent utility bills, both electric and gas. If you use oil for heat, you still will qualify. Um, but they will then need a record of a year's worth of deliveries. And then since we are tax exempt, uh, a copy of the state tax exempt certificate, so they file that with the proposal. Um, and then what happens is the contractors come out, they do their assessment, they prepare their proposal, they submit it to MassSave, MassSave reviews it, and there's some often back and forth where MassSave doesn't want them to do something quite the way they want to do it. But they eventually get to an agreed on scope of work. MassSave approves the incentive amount. And then at that point, the contractor sends you a contract which will detail here's the total cost of the work to be done. Here's the scope of work to be done. Here's the total cost of the work. Here's the incentive amount. If there's any balance due, here's what that is. And here's that option to pay it out over 12 or 24 months. Um, that's about as simple as we can make it. I know there's a number of steps in there, but uh, hopefully we've tried to keep it as um, simple as possible for you. One other thing I just wanted to mention, I guess we don't have any Lowell folks on the call, um, but this is also common in other towns. Any town that has a community aggregation electric program, which is more and more uh, cities and towns in the state, there is often an option for a 100% green, 100% renewable electricity option. Um, so here in Lowell, it's a little more expensive than the standard um, uh, uh, offering, which has 45% renewable energy. I know in my town in Medfield, the 100% green option is actually about a penny less than the standard option. So, whatever town you're in, look and see if there's a community aggregation program if you're not in it already, and see if they have a 100% option, um, and go for it. And I see Neil, you're raising your hand. Maybe not. Okay, I'll wrap things up, and then I want to bring Walter in, who has.
Sorry, I did want to say that
Yeah.
45% for Lowell is what Lowell adds on to the 15% state
Oh, okay.
mandated. It's about
Okay.
65%, and it is designed to be a 100% renewable. That's the plan we're on.
Got it.
And other
Great.
towns could be too.
Yeah.
It's not like such a big deal.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Perfect. Okay, so if you go through the program and you take advantage of the things, you will have hit a lot of the big energy savings things, and that is fantastic. Um, but there's still other things to do, and this is where I mentioned the MassIPL Environmental Stewardship Assessment Program, where we go into great detail looking at these four big areas of energy use: the heating and cooling system. There's some other things at the building envelope that we could talk about, other electricity uh, users in your building, and really importantly, behavior. Um, because with just some simple changes in the way, say, you manage the thermostats in your building and things like that, you can save, 5, 10% with no money up front. And we cover all that in our assessment. And that assessment is based on these questions. You can download them at this bit.ly link here, or maybe I'll even just send it out after the session. And I will certainly share the slides. I should have said that up front after the session. And that gives you a sense of the level of detail we go into in that. I will leave this one up. As a reminder, we're doing this again Monday night. And so hopefully, if you found this helpful, you can again spread the word. Um, and at this point, Walter, let me bring you in, and I'd love to hear about your experience with the program. And I don't know if when you exactly you did it, and if you've yet seen any impact from it.
Am I, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you.
We did it in 24.
Okay.
We did it in the summer when we only have small services in our chapel in the summertime. So it was not and we didn't have a nursery school that summer. So it was a real quiet time. So it took them a week to do our entire building. The process was a gentleman came out, a representative came out, and we walked through the building and discussed the options. We actually have three interconnected buildings. The main church, which was built in 1846, then the RE wing, and the chapel. And they were built in the RE wing and the chapel was built around 1950. Very little insulation in any of these buildings. The RE wing had a flat roof, so insulation was it was designed to melt the snow, the heat,
Mm.
so you wouldn't have snow sitting on your roof. But as you added insulation, that changes
Mm.
the world. They came in afterwards on what we agreed on and did the whole job in a week. They came in and sucked out whatever insulation we had, pulled it out, and then came in and spray foamed our attic. In fact, I have to go in the attic once a month to do inspections. It used to be the coldest spot in the church in the wintertime. It's not so cold anymore up there.
Mm. Mhm.
It was amazing how much heat is trapped up there. Um, so when I know we're not losing a lot through that attic. In the RE wing, the it trapped a lot of heat, and unfortunately, in the RE wing, the first floor and second floor are on the same zone, and the thermostat was across from the front door, which is where the nursery school opened and closed a lot. The second floor got so hot this summer we had to change the uh, every radiator to have a high limit on it so that it wouldn't get beyond 70 degrees.
Mm.
We just finished that up a couple of weeks ago because what was happening is in the wintertime you had to open a window. It was so hot. So we resolved that problem. We only have a crawl space in the RE wing and the chapel, and they completely did the floor from underneath. So it's pretty much an envelope. We did not get the walls done. Um, it was going to be too much of a added expense to have someone come back and plug all the holes uh, at that time. We were very pleased with the workmanship. Um, I've had another Unitarian church over in Groton come in to look at it. But like any good Unitarian church, they brought the whole committee. And it was, I had to take them up into the attic. Unfortunately, I had a piece of the sample of the insulation, so they took it. Too many engineers in that group. But anyway, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I've asked the treasurer to give me the facts, but I haven't gotten them back from him yet. How much we're saving? I think this is the year we're going to really see the savings because we won't be heating the second floor
Mm.
like we did before, um, which is good. And we're slowly moving over to heat pumps where we can.
Mhm.
Um, so hopefully that'll all work. We did put in, we remodeled the church back in, not the church, the RE wing and the chapel back in 2018. And at that time, we put in Wi-Fi thermostats so that we can control them from any place. Uh, and they're programmable.
Yeah.
The church administrator programs them every Friday for the next week.
Oh, nice. Did you
So,
get those through MassSave?
we got our rebates through them,
Okay,
but
good.
no, I had bought a couple of them before. Well, um, No, actually, I think I bought four of them through Amazon, and then I applied for the
Hmm.
rebate. So that was good.
Yeah.
Um,
Because there's
uh,
also, if you go to the MassSave site, there's a link to their store.
mhm,
And I haven't looked lately, but this is the time of year when they have like amazing deals on thermostats. Like you can get a Google Nest thermostat that might be a couple $100 for
mhm,
maybe $25.
yeah.
So, and yeah, I put Wi-Fi thermostats into my church finally um, a year or so ago, and man, it makes such a huge difference.
Oh, it does. Plus, if somebody calls, gets a hold of us, and we're not at the church, I can pull
Yeah,
up my phone and change the temperature.
yeah, cool, cool. Well, Walter, I'm
So yeah,
glad.
as far as what the work was done was very professional. Um, I would have preferred to see a little more hazmat suits than I
Hmm,
saw.
interesting.
Um, but I think that was a choice of what the people wanted to wear.
Hmm.
Uh, I was kidding with one of the fellow congregants, and we were watching him come out of this. The only area in the church I have not been in is a cubby hole over the uh, attic of the RE wing and the attic of the chapel. And at 75 years old, I'm not going up there.
Yeah.
You got to crawl through this hole in the wall to get there. Long story short is we were watching all these guys come out, and then one person came out at the end, with a face mask and put it on, and when she took the mask off, we realized it was a woman, and so we basically said, "Woman smarter than man." So I was glad to
Yeah,
see some people
yeah,
at least had the option to what they wanted to
totally.
do.
Good.
But yeah, we've noticed a big difference in the temperature in the church, and I don't think um, we have a big. We didn't have an increase in heat last year,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
and
Last year was strange because the price, particularly of gas, price went up a lot.
yeah,
And so I know some of the other churches that we had worked with last year, sort of at the same time that you did yours, they started getting their winter bills, but they weren't any different.
mm,
Well, the fact is that last winter was about 20% colder than the winter the year before. So in essence, if they hadn't done it, they would have been spending 20% more. So um,
yeah. And as far
it's,
as electricity is concerned, we get our electricity through a through National Grid, but it's there's a solar park up in North Chelmsford
mhm,
that we work with them, and we get basically 10% off
mhm,
because and it's all green.
yep,
It's Wooten Solar, I think it is.
got it. Great. Great. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. Russ, David, bring you guys in. Anything you heard here that you didn't know before? Any questions that Walter or I can help you with at this point?
Um, yeah, so we've gone through now multiple visits from MassSave, multiple lighting
Mm,
visits with MassSave, and slowly we've now completed insulation of the whole church. Um, uh, Advanced Green did a blow-in insulation, spray foam insulation for our attic, and it's really tightened it up.
mm,
Um, and I don't have any statistics yet, but uh, I'm sure we're going to be much lower than we have been in previous years. Our next step is to replace uh, what's probably about a 40-year-old gas boiler
mm,
that was originally converted from an oil burner
mm.
to a gas 40 years ago. Um, and replace that with air source and maybe if we're fortunate, ground source heat pumps. Um, right now, about 40% of the building is on um, air source heat pumps, mostly the smaller spaces and the
Right.
original RE um, spaces that we have a Montessori church as a tenant now. And so we replaced basically baseboard radiant electric heat with the air source heat pumps, and they saved a whole bunch.
Yeah.
That was early in COVID. We did that like
Hmm.
22 or 23 maybe.
Hmm.
Um, so we're at the point now we want to get the gas out of the building. And I approached MassSave, and they have their they're working with Rise Engineering, and
Hmm.
they came out and took a look, and they came up with a plan, but they kept missing things that we had asked for, and um, it wasn't, in my mind, working out too well. So at this point, we're um, soliciting proposals from engineers, and I believe that we will still be eligible to get mass save rebates,
Yep.
but just we'll have to apply for that on our own
Yep.
and do more legwork.
So you're having a mechanical engineer, you're looking for a mechanical engineer to scope the project for you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Um, do you know Norian Ciani Engineering out of Concord?
that's one of them.
Oh, good. And Mark Scow at Elevated Design.
I don't know Mark Scow.
Okay. They're they're the two like MassIPL's worked with Norian Ciani for years. Mark I've been working with now for about a year and a half, and he's done a couple of projects. So I can um, follow up and get you his contact
That'll
info.
be great. Yeah. Um, so yeah, we hope to get that going, and we're gonna have to, I think, do some fundraising, particularly if we go to
Mm,
ground source.
mm,
Um, but even for because it's the big spaces, it's
yeah,
the
right.
sanctuary, the parish hall,
Yep.
parlor area, the supper room and kitchen. So
Yep.
it's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the good news is that the uh, IRA, Inflation Reduction Act incentives for geothermal remain intact. Those
Ah,
were not removed the way the solar um, uh, incentives are being phased out more quickly. So,
yeah. But it's if those are federal incentives, is that
federal
right?
incentive, yeah.
Yeah, so aren't they tied with taxes and being a tax-free nonprofit?
No, 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 no. Under the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a provision for nonprofits that's called direct pay.
Oh,
Um, and you do have to file kind of an abbreviated tax form. Um, but then you get a check from the US Treasury for 30% of the cost of the system. And between that and MassSave, as you know, MassSave has, pretty good incentives for geothermal. They're higher than air source heat pumps. And between the two of those, I've been at a couple of conferences where people are presenting on that, say that between the two of those, you can cover up to half of the cost of a geothermal system, which, makes it a lot more feasible
yeah,
um, than otherwise and can bring it to close, they're saying close to uh, cost parity with an air source heat pump system.
yeah. So we're kind of running out of space for outdoor units, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
um, that's one of the reasons we're going in that direction.
Yeah. Great. Great. Well, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're
Good,
welcome.
good, good work there. And yeah, I'll definitely reach out and we'll connect. Russ, are you still with us? I'm
Still here.
my view. There you go. How are things going with you?
going well. We had a similar experience that Walter described with the advanced screen coming out, taking a look at the building. We have an 1851 building, and we were mainly concerned about our sanctuary because we have 30-foot ceilings and then a large attic space above that. We actually haven't hit winter yet, so we haven't had to use the heat since we had the insulation done in the spring. But what I noticed is because we don't have air conditioning in the building,
Mhm.
our sanctuary normally gets very warm during the summer. We usually have a stretch of about four weeks where I have to speak for maybe 15 minutes before I start losing people. And uh, we did not have that this year. I think the it got it got to 80, I think, for one Sunday, but for the most part. So I think the heat was actually we were getting radiant heat from the outside that now the blown insulation is kind of holding out.
Yeah.
And our hopes is that it's going to do the same thing for the holding the heat in once we start firing up the boilers.
Yep.
So,
That's
but the whole
exactly right.
process was fantastic. It was almost too good to be true. I remember emailing you, Jim, because I was like,
Yeah.
are you sure we don't have to pay for this? Because it's a lot of money. So this was fantastic, and I think we're gonna move forward. We have a lot of fluorescent lighting on our main floor, and we have one of our boilers is a steam boiler, so it might make sense to have
Mhm.
the steam traps looked at. But overall experience has been absolutely fantastic. So
Great.
appreciate you guys, and
Great.
it's been
Good.
great.
Good. Well, yeah, I can just like go ahead and send the folks at Energy Source and Steam Trap Systems your contact information because I know I've got that. If you're okay with that, I'll just go ahead and do that this afternoon and they'll reach out and get you set up.
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
awesome.
Fabulous. Fabulous. All right. Well, here we are. We're coming up on our hour. Thank you very much for coming. And as I said, um, it's great. We have people who've participated and who are doing a lot of the good work. Now we need to get more people who aren't as tuned into this as you all are. So again, spread the word about the Monday session or about participating in this program. And at any time, reach out to me, jnail@massipl.org, with any questions or any thing we can do to help you. Um, so with that, we'll let you get back to the rest of your day and um, have a good weekend.
Thank you so much. You all too.
Thank you.
Good meeting. Thank you. Good night.
Right.